Cominciamo con la richiesta, con la recitazione del Sutra del Cuore per eliminare le interferenze, poi faremo le preghiere di richieste di benedizione nella modalità abbreviata oggi.
So we start with the recitation of the Heart Sutra to remove the interferences.
첨된데 갸보캅 차고 분보리라 게롱기 겐든 첨보당 전주 선배 겐든 첨보당 다바 직도 쇼테 대체 첨된데 사면나와 셰자웨 최게 남장게 띵에 뇽브라쇼소 양테체 장주 셈바 첨보 팍바 첸레시 왕주 셰라게 파로도 짐 사모 쳬바 닐라 남브라 다시 분보 나보 테달라이 란 신게 톰바 남브라 타워 테네 상게게 투 세단 덴바 샤리푸 장주 셈 첨보 팍바 첸레시 왕주라 디게 체메소 Rigi apu kanglala shiragi parutu jimba samu cheba chebra deba te jidra labra cha tike che meba dan janju semba chenbo pakpa chenrezi wangju ge tsedan dem shara tati pula dike che me som Shari pu rigi pumo kanglala shiragi parutu Samo cheba chebra deba te didra nambra tawra chade pumbo ngabo teda kyam Ran shingi tomba nambra yandagbra jesu ta Su tomba wo tomba ni su le tomba ni shema yin Tomba nile kyan su shema ino Tishin tu tsorwa dan, dushe dan, duche dan Nambra sheba nam tomba wo sharipu Tedra che tamche tomba nite tseni meba ma keba ma gak Trima meba trima dan trawa triwa meb Kanwa meba wo sharipu Tedawe na tomba nila su me tsorwa me Dushe me duche na me Nambra sheba me mig me nawa me Na me che me lu me yi Su me dra me tri me ro me rikcha me Che me to mige kam me ba ne Yige kamma me, yige nambra shebe, kamge bardo yame to. Marikpa me, marikpa seba me bane. Gashi me, gashi sebe, bardo yame to. Teshin tu dunge wadang, kunchun wadang, gokpadam. La me, yeshe me, toba me, mato payame to. Sharipu tetawe na, janchu semba nam. Toba mebe chir, sheragi parutu jimbala tingchinet, semla tripa mechin trapa met, chinchi lol. Shindu dene nyange ledebe tar chinto, tu suntu nambra shube sange tamche kyang, sheragi parutu jimbala dene lana meba yandabra zobe, janchu tu ngombra zobra sange aso. Tawe na sheragi parutu jikbe nga rikpa chimbe nga lana mebe nga minyam pada nyambe nga dunga tamche rabdu shiwra chibe nga mizumbe na dembra shebra chate sheragi parutu chimbe nga me paya tayata gate parak Parasamgate bodhi svoha sharipu janju semba semba chimbo teta sheragi par chimba samola labra chawo tene chumdende tinge zin tele shende janju semba semba chim paba cherezi wanjola lekso she jawa chingne lekso lekso rigi pu tete shino rigi pu tete paru tu chimba samola chebra chat deshin shepa namkya chesu irango chumden degi dige che ka tselne tsedan demba sharata de put jancho semba semba chimbo papa chenre zi wangchu dam tam chedan dembe korra teda dan lada midan lama yindan trisara chebe jikne chumden degi sumba la ngombar yo kala chebe neche tambana ngweshe tsudru ngawe tudoba chem drupa pola maye pushin si nesong kandro tsola cha tse lo aka samaranza shatara samaraya pe aka samaranza shatara samaraya pe aka samaranza Maraya pe aka samaranza shatara samaraya pe taya ta gate gate paragat parasamgate bodhi svoha papa kuncho sumge kai dembe topchir do paragyurche me paragyurche shivara gyurche rapto shivara gyurche drage parche mi tumbe choreng emba tamche shande kuru yesoha geri tongra gechu shiwa da mi dunumbe kenda trawa tumba drupchen pinsun tsogyurupe trashi tekyan tendir dele sho Ojo sambo pagyo trashi pa tuche tempe trinle yarngo da pege drolor zambe zebrache pande lame shabla solwade Oma Guru Vajradhara Suma Timoni Shasane Karma Uta Varda Nishri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hong Hong Oma Guru Vajradhara Suma Timoni Shasane Karma Uta Varda Nishri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hong Hong Oma Guru Vajradhara Suma Timoni Shasane Karma Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hong Hong Oma Guru Vajradhara Suma Timoni Shasane Kar Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Oma Guru Vajradhara Suma Timoni Shasane Kar Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hong Dhagi Je Tsong Lama Tuje Che Nyamda Dala Tuje Siksu So Gebe Shesan Dala Tendo So Uyon Sunge Nawa Tsedo So Tseje Ningne Solwa Debe Tse Dechen Korlo Visu Lekshun Ila sambe dede malupa gemel hunge drupra chinge lo tsoni sodan dikdun shape tse dunge namke yinsu lekshun lapchen tsoni yonsu zopa dan chira nyedun chamra chinge lo chancho parge ninsen tukun tu nyu peme siudru lekshun Chanchu drube gegen kunshi shi tungen de la drubra chingelo dagelo na chola chokpa dan chemin samjur ngemba shiwa da chedan tumbe duden malupa beme hunge drubra chingelo dorna tingne tsera tamche ji bardu nega tamche tu rese kyamne lama kele me tukje chingi dala sikso so gongyab drewe nyamda dachala Je Tsong Lame tuje rab gongne kudan sungge nawa drame tu nyamsu nyongwe kesan tobra shu kewa kundu yanda lama dan drame chiki pela longche chin sadan lamge yonde rabzone dorje change kopa nyur toba shu ya pakyuke kudan dage alu pakyuke sundan dage nga Pakyuke tukdan dage ye ten yerme çıktı çinge alo makyuke kudan dage lu sundan dage nga makyuke tukdan dage ye ten yerme çıktı Chingelo Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Shakya Tayata gate gate para gate para samgate bodhi svohaya tayata gate gate para gate para samgate bodhi svohaya tayata gate gate para gate para samgate bodhi svoha Sashipeke choshime Tamare Ravalingashe Nide Gempadi Sange Shintu Mikte Ulvarki Drokuna Namda Shingla Cheopar Shoyidama Guru Ratna Mindrala Kam Niryatayami Sangye Chedan Tsoge Chonam La Jancho Pardo Dani Kyapsuchi Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonam Ki Drola Pinchira Sangye Drupar Sho Sangye Chedan Tsoge Chonam La Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapsuchi Dagi chuchin gibe sonam ki drola pinchira sange drupar sho sange chodan soge chonam la chancho pardo dani gyapso chi Dagi chuchin gibe sonam ki drola pinchira sange drupar sho
In the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment. Through the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I obtain the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings.
I take refuge into enlightenment through the practice of generosity and the other perfections. May I attain the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Namo yalhaye ke dal gedane jinke drubundan da mike namdan ruwakunge tanam chitsam pa tamche ke to dagi cheten to tamche ke to dagi cheten. Buongiorno.
Good morning.
Ogni tanto
Sometimes we have this idea, I don't know how much it's a conceptual idea or how much it's something more spontaneous. But the fact is that we have this idea that understanding is important, and that's it. I have understood. Sometimes we hear this, but I have understood. Yes, but it's for that, really for that you have to listen again and again, because as in Italian there is the way of saying, between saying and doing there is the C in between. And so if we want to adapt this, we can say that between understanding and really making it our own, there is the C in between. So we have to go from understanding and then to comprehending. The first step actually is to acquire information, both reading, listening, and traditionally is called the step of listening. And after we have done that, then we need to comprehend, we need to reflect on that many times, and then getting to a point where that information, that concept, is not something that someone has told us anymore, but something of which we have the certainty. And this shows also the two types of faith. In general, it is explained that there are three types of faith. The first is called Tepa. How to translate it? The faith of aspiration? No, not really aspiration. It's when we see something, someone, we say, wow, how beautiful, when we recognize the qualities of something. or someone. And we believe in that without really understanding the why and the how. We don't have a direct experience, but we believe that. Using a wrong translation, we could say like a blind faith. The second type of faith is the faith with trust. That is when we believe in something or someone, but this believing of ours is based on a direct experience and on a clear comprehension. So it's not anymore because someone has told us, but because I have my own certainty, my own comprehension of that. And then there is the third type of faith, that is the faith of aspiration, when we see a quality and we have faith in someone and we also desire to develop those qualities. I also want to be like that. So the other in which we have faith becomes like a mirror showing us who do we want to become. These in general are the three types of faith. The most important faith, and in the beginning, of course, is the one based on trust, which is the one based on our experience and comprehension. This is the most important one, but in order to get to this one, then we need to go through the step of acquiring information, getting to know someone, and then slowly, step by step, you develop that deeper trust, both to a concept, towards a concept, or towards a person. And once we have developed that deeper faith, unfortunately, it's not that our mind works in a way that we develop a thought, an emotion, something once, and then that's it. And then it's done, both in the good and bad way. When we're able to develop a really good, positive, virtuous state of mind, then does it last forever? Then that's it, it's done? No. And that's the same also for the bad one. When we generate a mental state, if that mental state is something that we care about, that we believe it's important, that we should repeat it more times and induce ourselves to feel that again. And the more we do that, the easier it becomes and the more natural it becomes. It's a matter of habit. We are made of habits. The mantra that we have recited today at the beginning, in a few words, it can be interpreted in many ways, but in a simple way, it shows us this path of ours. Tayata means so it is so. And this refers to anything. It's like the moment, okay, I have understood it. The Tayata is that moment. I have understood the importance of trusting a spiritual guide. I've understood. Now we need to go, so gate, and go again, gate, and go beyond paragate, and then go even beyond, even further, parasangate, to the state of complete realization, bodhi, and soha, so be it. And so to go beyond, to go even beyond, to the state of the perfection, or the total realization, or the enlightenment. We can translate in different ways, and so be it. In simpler words, what does it mean? I have understood, and to go, the first gate, the first going, means to go beyond the conceptual part. So gradually to go to bring that concept from the understanding to the comprehension, and then to generate more times that awareness in a way that bit by bit becomes something more spontaneous. So the first two gate, we are still at the conceptual starting point. We're still familiarizing ourselves with a concept. To go beyond means to go beyond the concept, so to go beyond the conceptual level, to develop our own direct experience, not something that someone has told us anymore, but a direct experience. And to go even beyond means to repeat that direct experience many times, so that we can get to a moment where we become that thing. There isn't any more separation between that and us, and this is the body, the final state, the so-called enlightenment. But this can be about any aspect, many aspects. And here it shows us actually that it's important for us to hear, understand, comprehend, but actually the longest and the most important part of our path is about the familiarization, the repeating, in order to create slowly that state. And predominantly there are three things that we need to generate along our path. There are love towards ourselves, love towards the others, and a coherent vision of reality. In a few words, it's these three things. In order to generate love towards the others, altruism, we first need to generate love towards ourselves. And it's not enough to just do it once, we need to regenerate that many times. And here there is an important thing. I try to be brief. There is a concept that it's there both in the Buddhist teachings, but I also heard it from a doctor of neuroscience. I explain now the Western way, which is more direct for everyone. It is said that our brain has a particular feature, it's one of the functions of our brain and mind, is to sort the information that we receive, because we receive a lot of information, and the quantity of information that we receive in every moment is simply enormous. But our mind has this function of saying, okay, this I need it, good, I give it attention, this I don't need it, then I pretend that it's not there. And for this reason also, now I don't remember the name, there is a specific part of the brain that has this function. But anyway, in this part, when we give attention to something, and this attention is given through that desire, the want of something, then we activate inside of ourselves like a thing, okay, that thing is important. So naturally, our mind, our brain, call it like you want, will look for that thing between the inside of the information that we receive, and this happens in an unconscious way. There are many ways to explain this, many stories that we can tell, but I don't want to go long on this. The fact is that it's a bit like, there is like a classic example of this, that it's quite trivial, but it has already happened to me. There is something that in general you don't pay attention to. I don't know, maybe a certain type of car, and then at a certain point you give importance to that type of car, and you start to see it everywhere. Oh, what do you mean? Like now that I bought this car, everyone bought it. No, simply before I didn't see it, not because it wasn't there, but because I wasn't giving importance to it. And the interesting thing is that when we generate a desire, an aspiration, and we give a direction, our mind goes to find ways to get that in an unconscious way. There is this doctress, she was telling a story of her, like a personal story about this. She was young, she was still doing like a sort of trial after the studies, and she was sent to participate to a big event, and the rector of her university, the director, told her, okay, look, bring this letter to this event of the United Nations, the ONU, and make it so that this letter goes to Kofi Annan. And she said, me, as a student, how can I make it so that I meet this person, this very important person, and invite that person to the university. But okay, I try. And so she stayed with this letter in her pockets and that wish, but there weren't actually any modes to do that. And one day, as she was there, like a lady goes by, and as she asks her where is the toilet, and shows her, and then they start to get like a sort of connection, and they have a particular attention to each other and so on, and then they do all the meetings, and she is on the plane while she's coming back, and then she thinks, okay, no Kofi Annan. And as she's there, meets again that lady that she met before, and okay, then he goes like, you're here, why are you here, and this and that. No, because I'm the wife of Kofi Annan. And she asked her, did it all go well? Yes, the only thing is that I had this duty, but it didn't happen. I can help you, I'm the wife of Kofi Annan. And so then it goes like that. And she explains that she had that wish, and somewhere she had already seen that was the wife of Kofi Annan, but her mind somehow was looking for ways to achieve her goal. And so she saw that woman, she was attracted by her, and she got closer. And so if she needed help, she created a bound. And according to explanation that she gave, this started from the initial wish. And we find then ways to realize what we want in a non-conceptual, non-conscious way. And what happens is that when we have an intention of doing something good, when we wake up in the morning and we generate a good motivation, we generate a good intention, now today I will do this, I will do that, I will be patient, I will be joyous, I want to help this person. Whatever intention, positive intention we put in the morning, during the day, our mind will try to find ways to create even only a narrative to sustain that wish, and we'll try to find ways to make it happen. If on the other hand we start off with the wrong foot, and we start the day by seeing things in a negative way, we will try to find narratives and ways to sustain that version. It's the input that we give, then the mind follows. Yesterday I was translating Je Rinpoche, and it was nice and also auspicious that somehow the teachings that he was giving yesterday and today are really about the part of refuge and bodhicitta that we're also saying these days. And he was making this example where if at a certain point you generate the wish of hurting someone, then at a certain point someone that you don't like, something happens and you get that wish, that urge to hurt that person, and from that wish a whole chain of thoughts came. But look, if I find that person, that I can say that's the thing in front of the other person, I can find the defects of that person, and blah blah blah. The mind finds 1,000 ways to achieve that wish. If we think that, okay, we want to help someone in the same way, our mind will follow our whole chain of thoughts. That is the way so that can happen. So at the basis there is our wish. The wish, it's one of the most powerful things that we have. And it's because of this that it's important to generate the motivation. And to generate the motivation means to generate a wish, an aspiration. What do I want? And not to take this for granted, but to repeat it many times. And he said, okay, to feel a desire, a wish that doesn't arise in a spontaneous way, because I don't have such a level of familiarization with this love towards myself. And so I need to repeat it, I need to induce myself to that desire. I need to induce myself to the desire that I want to get out of samsara, that I want to reach a deep state of peace, what we talked about yesterday. And so it's something that we need to induce ourselves, not once or twice, but thousands and thousands of times. And gradually it becomes more and more familiar. And when we are able, mostly at the beginning of a cycle, so for example in the morning, because like when we sleep, when there is a certain reset in the mind, like also from a physical point of view. Recently I read that when we sleep, at a certain point, what happens is that during the day we accumulate toxins in our brain. And so, for example, after 18 hours that a person is not sleeping, the brain starts to accumulate a certain quantity of toxins that it's similar to being drunk. So one loses the capacity of concentration, the senses start to lose their clarity, and when we sleep, physically, there is a sort of liquid that goes to clean the brain and removes the toxins, and so there is a sort of reset when we sleep. When we start the day, so there is a beginning of a new cycle, and in the morning to generate the motivation for that day to directions our actions, both the ones that are conscious and unconscious. And for this, it's really fundamental for us to renew our motivation constantly, at least once a day. One wakes up in the morning and gives a direction to oneself. What do I want? What direction do I want to give to myself? This is something that it's important. I don't know what are the habits that you have when you wake up. One advice is to keep the phone as far as possible. Otherwise, one hasn't even started a day and is already taking that object, and you haven't even opened your eyes well, and look what this person wrote, and look at what happened here and there. But it's important when we wake up first thing to generate the motivation. What do I want? Today I want to be well with the others, I want to be patient, I want to cultivate love, I want to be able to decrease the strength of my negative habits, I want to reinforce my positive habits. Whatever happens, I don't want to get mad, I want to be gentle. We should choose something, we should give ourselves an intention. If we want to go even deeper, we can reflect, like, okay, I want to get out of samsara. And for this, today I must do every action in that direction. May everything that I do, every encounter that I have, be a part of this path to reach a deeper state of peace, to get out of my cycle of samsara. Then if we go even further, then there is the motivation of bodhicitta, and we can add that. But we can also do this as we are still laying in the bed. The ideal thing is to sit a bit. One breathes a bit with awareness and generates the motivation, using some verses or not. The important thing is not what we recite, but what is the inner state that we generate. In other words, what is it that we desire? What is the direction that we give to our mind? Because otherwise we create a habit of reciting. I wake up in the morning and I start it doesn't work. It's good. Okay, words need to be like the stick of the old man that he uses for walking. The old man is the meaning and the words are the stick. We should use the words as a way to direct our mind. So the motivation should be generated again and again, and it's not that for nothing that when we begin a teaching or a practice, we always start with the recitation of the verses that are about the generation of the motivation. So the take of refuge, we generate love towards ourselves. And the generation of bodhicitta, we generate love towards the others. Why this? Because at the basis of all our actions, there is our intention, there is our desire, there is that simple question, what do I want? Why do I do what I do? And one thing that happens to each one of us is that most of the times we don't ask ourselves, what do I want at all? Why do I do what I want? We just wake up and we go in auto mode. And very often what we want is not something in which we consciously put ourselves to desire, but partly like a wish, a desire that we inherited from a social, cultural context, also religious context. We received kind of as a heritage some goals, some desires. Since when we were children, we were told like what does it mean to have a successful life, what kind of wishes should we have, and so the majority of us hasn't even like reflected or tried to put these things into discussion. We simply receive these things. And so to ask ourselves the question, what do I really want? I think it's fundamental. And this is what we do with the motivation. It's clear that to put ourselves the question really clearly, we need to have some control of the mind, because otherwise, if we ask ourselves what do we really want, between the question and the answers, we have like 20 different thoughts. So that's why one first sits down quietly and breathes, and then there are some techniques also of breathing, like with the 4 phases or the 9-cycle breathing, to try to calm down the mind and bring our presence in the present moment. And it's as if we were with a horse that is very nervous. First we take it with gentleness, we calm it, and then once there is that harmony between us and the calmness, then at that point we take the reins and we get the direction that we want. This is what happens also with our mind. Pabonka Rinpoche makes another example in the Book of Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand that says, imagine that you come to a place where there are more rooms, and there is one room when there is only one pillow, one cushion to meditate, and you want to meditate, but there is someone else sitting on that cushion. And so if you go to that person and you say, look, that is my cushion. Now it's up to me, it's my turn to meditate, you should go away. And the other person gets even more rigid. No, I am here, I'm not going away from here. You can spend days discussing about this. But the technique would be, you get there, you see that there is the other that is there on the cushion, you look, you show that you're there, then you go a bit towards another room, you pretend, then you come back, and then you say, you don't know what a beautiful thing it's there in the other room. Look, there is something very special. And you go there, and when the other person gets up, then quickly you go back there and then you sit, and so you've taken the place. This is what we do with our mind, with the breathing, because we don't have the capacity of having 2 thoughts at the same time. And when the mind is there spinning around something, to tell the mind, stop thinking about that, doesn't work. We need to give a distraction, we need to bring the mind somewhere else to then take that space. So before generating the correct motivation, we should take the space of our mind. And so with the breathing, we do that. It's a bit like, it's like a kid that really likes something, then you show that kid something else, but also with adults. And so the breathing technique at the beginning is fundamental, and once we have done that, then we generate the motivation of love towards ourselves with the take of refuge that we've seen yesterday. once we have developed a feeling of love towards ourselves, to recognize the three types of suffering, to recognize the samsara, to want to get out of this samsara, then we generate this strong will of wanting to reach a state of peace that transcends the conditions in which we find ourselves, the so-called of liberation of samsara. And when we have that, at that point, we have the basis to then generate a level of consciousness that it's even more elevated, that it's love towards the others, that it's a state of altruism. So we won't get into the details, but predominantly how the practice is done. So here also there are three levels: what to recite, what to visualize, and what state of consciousness should be generated, and we should understand all the three. So we start from the visualization in this case. So we are sitting. We have visualized Guru Buddha in front of us. We have done the take of refuge. The rays of light have come towards us, have filled each one of our chakras, have purified our negativities. One thing that we haven't explained yesterday, as we do Namo Guru Bhye, we imagine that our negativities are purified, and in particular all the negativities that have been created on our side towards the Guru. So there may be rancor or uncertainty, any negative thought or word or action that is non-virtuous that we have had towards the Guru, in that moment becomes completely purified. It's as if we have a friendship with someone and we get closer to that person. If there are some impurities in our relationship and some rancors or things like that, then it's important to clean that, to make it so that that is not there anymore. So any negativity we have accumulated in relation to the Guru, both with our physical action and verbal and mental, because the actions we have completed them, but the karmic force of the action and the predisposition generated through the action remains. So we imagine that that becomes purified. When you talk about purification, what do we mean by that? It's not to generate a sense of guilt and to say, how bad have I been, I have thought that. It's the fact that when we take an action that is mental, verbal, or physical, then it generates two things that remain. One is a habit, and so a conditioning that for how small initially can be thing or think something, then the easier it becomes to do it again. And it generates a karmic force, an inertia, an energy that remains from that pushes us. So the process of purification is to clean these two things. So we imagine that as we do Namo Guru Bhye, every negativity, that is whether it's physical, verbal or mental, that has been generated from our side towards our Guru, whatever of our Gurus, then in that moment we imagine cleaning that. We openly admit our mistake. It's like, okay, we go and see what didn't go well, we recognize without a feeling of guilt, but with a feeling of liberation. Okay, I don't need that anymore, it's not part of me anymore. And so we imagine as the rays of light and nectar come, that this negative force that goes away, dissolves. Then when we do Namo Buddhaya, it's the same thing towards the Buddha. The Dharmaya, it's the same thing towards the Dharma, and also the same for the Sangha. And so after we have done the take of refuge, at this point there are two different versions, but I follow what I believe is best for each one of us. We visualize around us all the other beings. The other version is that you visualize the beings already from the take of refuge, but I prefer to generate this awareness after, because in the take of refuge we give emphasis on the love towards ourselves, and then we give emphasis on expanding this love towards the others. Also because there is a fundamental point here. The majority of us, I say the majority because I don't know, maybe among you there may be some bodhisattvas and Buddhas, how can I know? But those that are not, at the basis we are selfish, aren't we? Yes. That is, we have at the basis our obsession with self-gratification, and the I and the mind is the most important thing that has ever existed. We start from that. And it's not possible to develop love towards the others starting already from a place where we are altruistic. We have to start from where we are. It's not possible to start from a place where we are not. And we are selfish. And so we need to use selfishness itself as a tool to develop altruism. And the first step of this is to recognize our needs, because also here there is a fundamental aspect. When our needs are not fulfilled, are not welcomed, we are not able to take care of the needs of the others. For example, I've seen people that have a level of compassion, of gentleness, kindness, love, very, very beautiful. That in general I have always been like available to help the others, to be there for the other, and in the moments when their primary needs were not fulfilled, they were not able anymore to see the others as they did before. You can just try, to put like your hands inside the door and you close the door, and so you have pain. Our thought, where does it go to? Towards the others or towards the I? Towards the I. When our needs are not fulfilled, when we are hungry, when we have pain, when we are not well, when we are in a state of strong suffering, we ourselves, then we'll have a hard time to open to the others. So at the beginning, at least, it's fundamental to satisfy. I don't mean like to say, okay, all our needs, but to at least have taken them into consideration, having welcomed them. And it's for this that in the first part of love towards ourselves, and when we welcome ourselves, and when we welcome ourselves and we feel that we are doing what is necessary for us, when we are in the best of the situations where we could find ourselves, on the basis of that, then a foundation is created to then open to the others. And it's for this that first we observe our suffering and receive the rays of light towards ourselves, and we feel loved by Guru Buddha. We generate mutual and love and trust, and we feel this state of joy, of bliss, and we purify our negativities, we connect with our qualities, and we imagine at least to experience a state of peace and well-being. And once we have this, then at that point we are ready to then see the others. And also for this reason, when we use the technique of giving and receiving, the Tongla, that we will see later, maybe, I don't know when, but we start from taking from ourselves, and then you take from the others. Then we will explain that later. And in this moment we have taken care of ourselves, and then we take care of the others, and so we visualize around us all the other beings. In front of us there is always Guru Buddha as before, and as we said before, we can visualize either the presence of our own Guru, or like in the aspect of Buddha Shakyamuni, or we visualize the 5 thrones with Buddha Shakyamuni in front of us, and then in the throne in front there is our own Guru, and then on our right side there is Manjushri, and on our left there is Maitreya, and behind there is Vajradhara. with all the masters of the lineage, of the Tantra and so on. Then if we want, we can even get into more details. We can get up to the level of detail that you say, okay, close to each master of the lineage, of each lineage, how many volumes has that master written? And so one imagines in front of each volume like the title of that volume. And for a while I've asked myself, but is it really so that someone can do this? But once I was in Tibet, I was receiving some teachings from the abbot of Tashilumpo, and at a certain point one of his oldest disciples come, and he was in the middle of some lesson and he was walking by and he said, okay, yeah, please come. And he stopped the teaching and he had a specific question on a detail of the detail of the detail of the merit field. That extended version that somewhere there we have like a very small representation on that door that goes to the kitchen.
Rappresentazione all'interno. Ok, quello è il campo dei meriti. Aveva una domanda su uno di quei piccoli dettagli che c'era lì, ma alla destra di quello
A very, very tiny detail, and they were talking about the visualization of the merit field with a quantity of details that I was shocked. I didn't expect that really there is would do that, who does that. But okay, these are people whose full-time job is that. They spend their whole life meditating, doing this. It's not that mind is taken by many other things. And anyway, the fact that there are fewer external inputs increases the capacity of having internal input. It's like what happens with children. There is an enormous difference between reading books and watching movies. When we watch something, when the input is from the outside and it blocks our internal creative input. When we have fewer external inputs, that increases our internal richness, our capacity of creativity and so on. Anyway, this is not the argument, but the point is that we visualize. The simplest way that I prefer is when it's what is called the jewel that contains everything that is precious. That is one image, that is Puja Shakyamuni or our own Guru. As we have said yesterday at the beginning, the visualization is to imagine oneself in the presence of that being. It's not like to take a painting, to take a picture and then to put it in front of us. So we imagine to be by all means in the presence of the Guru. And when we visualize one of our masters or more of our masters, if our master is alive, then we visualize him or her sitting on a cushion. When our master has already left the body, then we visualize him or her sitting on a lotus. This is the difference that it's there traditionally. So anyway, we visualize Guru Buddha in the way that is the closest to us, so either in the aspect of our own Guru or in the aspect of Lama Je Tsong Khapa, so like the Guru of the lineage or Buddha Shakyamuni, what touches us more. Then we do the part of the take of refuge and then we visualize the other beings around us, and here there are different modes. What I like, the one that I like the most is when we visualize on our right, our father, on our left, our mother. Next to our father, we visualize the people that are the closest to us on the male side, and then on the left, the female side. This is not to do a distinction like man and woman. This is to put on our sides all those that we love. If one prefers to put men and women together, then there is no difference. Not that now there is like a gender distinction. It's not that. It's simply to help us to see all the people that we love, that they are close to us, next to us, starting from our parents, whether they are alive or not. We visualize them next to us, and then our grandparents, children, husband, wife, partners, friends, all the people that we love, towards which we have a certain attraction, and we put them next to us. In front of us, we put all those towards which we have a particular aversion. So those people that when we see them, then there is like some difficulty, and someone sometimes has asked me, as a category, it should be maybe next to me, but actually, as a feeling, it's in front. And where should I put that person? And I said in front, because it's not like about the category, it's about the feeling. So in front we have aversion, on the sides attraction, and behind indifference. So before the divorce, it's not like before the divorce I put that person on the side, and after the divorce I put that person in front. No, it's not about that. It's about the feeling that I have internally to that person. So those towards which I have attraction, I put them on the sides. Then those towards which I have a particular aversion, I put them in front. And then those towards which I am indifferent, that it means that they don't feel neither attraction or aversion, then we put them behind, and they are innumerable. We imagine each one of them, and we allow ourselves to see them. So it's a bit like, it's as if everyone was there, each one of them. And also a way to help in this visualization is to visualize the people that are close to us, and then those that are close to the ones that are close to us, because we have quite a limited circle of people with which we have a close contact. But those people in turn have other friends, other people, and so in this way it expands. There exists also a way when we visualize. In one of the teachings of the Lojong, it is said to give emphasis on there are those that are part of our family, those that are our friends, the people with which we live in our everyday life, that are neither like friends or family, but we deal with them in our daily life. Then the people towards which we have done good, but in turn they have done us bad, and those towards which we have a karmic aversion. We don't like them and we don't even know why, or maybe we know.
Quelli a cui abbiamo un'avversione e abbiamo tutta una ragione del perché.
So those towards which we have an aversion and we know why, then it's the fourth category. Otherwise, if we don't know, it's the fifth. Why should we start from these beings? Because if we start to visualize all the beings generalizing, then it becomes something detached from us, something far away. And so it's nothing else than something idealized. I want to love all the beings, with exception of those that I don't want to love. Actually, should be each one, and by being each one, then it becomes everyone, and we start from the ones that are close to us. So we imagine the beings, and once we have imagined them, we first of all generate a feeling of equanimity. There are different modes on this, but here we generate the feeling where between me and you and each one that is around me, there is no difference, and also between them. We look in the eyes to each one of the people that are around us. We can choose maybe someone in particular, and we ask ourselves, is that person suffering or not? When we look around us, ourselves, is everyone suffering? Yes, but not only with the manifest suffering, but also with the suffering of change. They are taken by the samsara, by the all-permeating suffering. They are also taken by their own mental defilements and the karma. They are in the cycle of suffering, of the samsara, in the same way that we are. So by taking as an example, the type of suffering that we have recognized in ourselves, we also go and look at the others. Do they also suffer or not? Do you like to suffer? No. Just like I don't. And so just as I don't like to suffer, they also don't, but they suffer also, just like I do. Do they want to be happy? Do they have an attraction to happiness? Do they do everything that they do trying to be well, guided by their own ignorance or not? Just as I do. And what we generate in this moment is a basis of empathy. Because here there is a very interesting point. So that we can feel sympathy for someone, and from that to generate like a state of altruism and so on. This is based on empathy, and empathy is based actually on our own selfishness. That is, when I see myself in you, then I'm not able anymore to conceive that there could be suffering, violence towards you. Or when I see myself in you, then naturally I project that attraction to happiness and aversion to suffering also in you. Let's make an example. We are in a waiting hall of like a hospital. Then at a certain point we start to talk with someone that is there, that has the same disease that we have. Is there like a certain empathy that is created or not? Why? Because we see ourselves in the other. And this is one of the most fundamental points to generate love and compassion. In order for me to see the other, first of all, I need to allow myself to see myself. The more I see that we are similar, the more I see that I have empathy toward you, and then also then love, altruism, compassion comes. Because if we go and check both on a personal, individual level and also collective and systemic, in order to justify violence internally, the narrative that it's created to justify violence is to say we are not equal and I am better than you. And this is seen in many fields, also when there is systemic violence. Why can I accept the violence towards this and not those? Because the first ones are different from me and I am better than them, and the other ones are the same as me. So I see myself in them. And if we see historically, and also in the present times, at the basis, to sustain an act of strong violence, first of all, there is this distinction with an act of superiority. I am better than you, from a point of view, a social point of view, and like as an cultural identity, from the point of view of what country I belong to, what religion, and so on. The value that we give to the life of someone or someone else, is it the same or not? But what does it determine, the value that we give to the life of a person or another? Whether one or the other is similar to me and how much I see myself in the other. And so, we, in order to feel love and compassion towards someone, we need to see ourselves in the other. So that's why it's easier to have love and compassion towards our family, towards people that are close to us. One of the bases for this is because I see myself in you. So we have some things with which I identify. We are from the same family. We are from the same culture, we are the same country, whatever, like whatever adds his own thing. But when there is a strong part of identity and then also a difference that creates a distance and then violence. And we use, okay, here, so we use this method, this aspect to our own favor, because when we talk about equanimity is to look at the others and say we are equal. Actually, at the end, there is no difference between us. And what is it that puts us in the same situation? And this is not like a mental trick, it's a matter of fact. Each one of us wants to be happy and not suffer. And we do what we do, guided by our own ignorance, trying to be happy. And this is the same for everyone. And someone may say, yes, but I'm not like him or her. Think about the person that it's the meanest that you can think of. Whether it's a person that you know personally, whether it's a public character or a fictional character. And we should ask ourselves, are we like the other person or not? Are we similar or different? We are similar. Because in the deepest aspect, we are the same. We want to be happy and not suffer, and we do all that we do for our happiness, guided by our own ignorance. Then one is tall, the other is short, the one wants one thing, one likes the pasta, the other likes the rice. We can make infinite distinctions. You have certain values, I have other values. We can really see a lot of differences, but at the basis, the most important aspect, we are the same. There is no difference. And we should allow ourselves to feel that, to observe that, and to get to a point where we really somehow are able to feel that there is much less distance between ourselves and the others. On the basis of that, the more we're able to decrease this distance, the more empathy increases. And the more empathy increases towards the other, so we start to feel what the other feels, we start to allow ourselves to open to the other, then from this naturally we start to get a feeling where that strong attraction to happiness and aversion to suffering that we have starts to expand. And so we see every being, we see that we are the same, that there is no difference between us because everyone wants to be happy and not suffer. We're all guided by our own ignorance and mental defilements, taken by our own karma. We are on the same boat. And when we are able to see this, then we gradually start to generate a feeling like, how beautiful would it be if you would be happy? How beautiful would it be if you could be free by your own hatred, anger, by your own vicious cycles and by your suffering. Imagine that mean person that we have talked about before. It's not so difficult to look at that person and to say, how beautiful would it be if you could be free from your anger, hatred, ignorance, and so on, from your unhealthy, harmful behavior. How beautiful would it be if that person could have a state of love and compassion, could reach a state of balance for himself or herself and the others. That would be beautiful. This means to have love and compassion towards that person.
Un errore fondamentale che noi facciamo spesso è il fatto di credere che se io...
So one fundamental mistake that we often do, it means that if I love you, then it means that I agree with how you behave. So if you have behaved badly, then you should suffer. What I desire is that you can get out of your own cycle of suffering, eliminating the causes, among which wrong views, actions, and behavior, and so on. So if I love you, I'm not saying that I agree with you. If I love you, I'm saying I see you and I would want you to be happy, to be in a state of balance, to be free from your anger, ignorance, selfishness, that you can actually sustain a state of happiness that is sustained. And then this behavior and that behavior, I'm ready to condemn them. But it's important for us to really get out of this dynamic, and so to judge the actions, physical, verbal, mental, and not the person, and to put that person in a category, this is good, this is bad, we are all in the same boat. But there are behaviors, physical, verbal, mental, and so points of view, values, and so on, that are harmful, that generate suffering both towards oneself and also in the interaction with others, and so they need to be abandoned. It doesn't matter who does them. And so there isn't. And so for this we should look at this person and say, I really love you with all my heart, and so for this I really wish you to stop doing this and that and to reach a deeper state of peace. Also because who is at peace doesn't act with violence. I've never seen anyone that is joyous, satisfied, at peace with oneself, that acts with hatred towards the others, violence. Violence is always a consequence of an inner state of deep dissatisfaction, and never seen otherwise. And so when we see someone that acts with violence, actually it's an object of compassion, that it's really meaningful. And to have compassion doesn't mean to say, poor thing. No, it means to say, may this person be free from his or her own violence and ignorance and selfishness. May that person be free from suffering by all means and the causes of that suffering. And so we imagine the people around us, we observe them, we allow ourselves to see that there is no difference between us and them, and then we gradually try to generate this feeling. I want you to be happy, I want you to not suffer. The first feeling is love, so I want you to be happy, or I want you to be well, and then from that, consequently, it comes, I don't want you to suffer, the compassion. And the more we allow this feeling to grow, the stronger comes a sense like, I must do something. Because yes, I want to be happy, but I also want you to be happy. In a few words, the feeling that we generate in this moment, that we can also verbalize, is we look at any of the beings around us and we say, your happiness is as important for me as mine. Your suffering is as important for me as mine. I profoundly wish you to be happy and not suffer, and I will do anything that I can so that this can happen. Let's start first of all to feel all of this with one person. We could take anyone, our father, mother, wife, husband, doesn't matter. It's easier towards the ones that are close to us. Then we look at that person and we say, your happiness is important for me as mine, and to be able to say that really is not so easy. Because usually we say, your happiness is important for me as long as you do what I want. As long as you are as I think you're supposed to be. The day that you will not behave in the right way and do what I don't like, then we start to change things already. But if you're really able to look at the other in the eyes and profoundly, deeply feel, your happiness is as important for me as mine, and your suffering is as important for me as mine. And I profoundly wish that you will be happy and not suffer, and I will do anything that I can so that this can happen. And when we're able to say this to one person, to one being, then we can also put animals in all the beings, of course. We can, if we are able to do this, to say this to that being, then we look at the one close to that person and we think, okay, if I have that feeling towards that person, then why don't I have it towards this other person? And then bit by bit we allow this to expand like a wave, and then it goes like to the people that are in the back and so on. And once we have generated this feeling, then we get there is a step, there is like a sense of impotency. Because if your happiness is really as important for me as mine, and then what can I really do to help you? Is it difficult or not to help the other? Are you able to change the other? Because one thing is, okay, you're hungry, I give you food. You're sad, I give you a present, I make you a present. I give you a caress. Yeah, that's nice. But when I want you to be free from the all-permeating suffering, when I profoundly wish that you will be happy you will be free from your selfishness and ignorance, and you will get out of your own cycle of samsara, the basis to help you in that is that I am already out of that myself. I can take you where I am not. How can I help you to not get angry when me myself I'm getting angry with any little thing? How can I help you to be satisfied when I am not? How can I help you to see reality in a coherent way when I don't see that like that? It's not possible. And so, from this start the two aspirations that are called of the bodhicitta. Bodhicitta literally means the mind of enlightenment, or the mind that goes towards enlightenment. Enlightenment is the inner state where one has developed one's own qualities at the maximum potential and consequently eliminated any mental defilement. Consequently is not really the right term. It's a bit like when there is the light and the darkness. As the light comes in, the darkness goes away. It's not that first the light goes in and then the darkness goes out, or the other way around. The two things go together. And similarly, the more generosity there is, the less avarice there is. So as our qualities develop, our mental defilements decrease. It's something that goes together. And so these two parts of the Buddha that are to eliminate the mental defilements and develop the qualities, it's something that goes together. So the emphasis here is placed actually on developing the qualities. And so this state of enlightenment, the mind of bodhicitta, is what desires this state of enlightenment. Then there are two types of bodhicitta, two types of mind of enlightenment. There are consequent. One is called Mumpe Semkye, that is the bodhicitta of aspiration, and the other is called Jukpe Senkye, that is called also the bodhicitta of action. In English we use the translation engagement, actually.
Comunque, diciamo bodhicitta dell'azione. La differenza principale è che prima di tutto si deve passare.
The main difference is that, okay, first we need to go through the bodhicitta of aspiration, and Shantideva in Bodhisattva Charavatara describes it as the wish of walking and the walking itself. So that I can walk towards a certain direction, first of all, I should want to walk. But only wanting to walk is not enough. At a certain point I need to move the legs in that direction. So one thing is, I want to reach enlightenment to help all the beings, and when there is that wish, it's the bodhicitta of aspiration. When that wish turns into a consistent path of inner transformation, then that becomes the bodhicitta of engagement. So, but at the basis, the bodhicitta has two aspirations. That one is the aspiration towards oneself and then towards the others, like two wishes. It starts from the aspiration towards the others. There is that feeling of love aspiration. I want every being to be happy and not suffer, and I will do everything that I can so that this can happen, starting from the fact that my happiness is important, yes, and so the same way the one of each one, everyone. And this is called the aspiration towards the others, so this deep love altruism. Let's remember that altruism is the moment where there isn't any more difference for me, for my happiness, between my happiness and the happiness and the one of the others. And the same for suffering. And the selfishness is when there is a difference. So altruism is the basis of bodhicitta, but it's not enough, because once I have this feeling of altruism, then there is this sense of impotence. Now what do I do? And here comes this strong determination of developing oneself, that is the aspiration towards ourself. The only thing that I really can do to help the others is to develop myself. By using an analogy, it's like saying, okay, there is a lot of poverty, I want to help. Who doesn't have money? How? By being poor in the same way. First, I need to obtain some food so that I can give food. Or like, I wish that everyone could speak Sanskrit, but I don't speak Sanskrit. First, I should learn Sanskrit so that I can help the others to speak it. And so for this we generate this deep intention. I want to develop patience, love, awareness, altruism, wisdom. I want gradually to develop my qualities to their maximum potential and so to become a Buddha, because this is the only real way that I can actually help the others. In the meanwhile, I help how I can, but my priority is that. And so the bodhicitta has these two characteristics. And so wanting to help the others, and then at the same time wanting to develop oneself to then help the others. At this point of the practice, after having generated this feeling, then we recite at this point in the Buddha and Dharma and Sangha, I take refuge till enlightenment, through the practice of generosity and the other perfections. And so with the practice of generosity, morality, patience, enthusiastic effort, concentration and wisdom, may I obtain the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. So I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, and someone could say, but first we also took refuge in the Guru. Actually, when we talk about the objects of refuge, there are always three. It's always Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. There are always the three jewels. But when we say take refuge in the Guru and Buddha are one, are inseparable one from the other. They don't make distinction. So it's always Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. But the Guru, it's what makes us get in touch with the Buddha. So it's inseparable one from the other.
Il Guru è già incluso. Quando diciamo prendo rifugio nel Guru, il Buddha è incluso. In realtà uno è inseparabile dall'altro. Perciò nel Buddha, nel Dharma e nel Sangha prendo rifugio. Fino a quando? Finché non ho raggiunto il mio obiettivo.
So I take refuge in them until I have reached my goal, until I reach enlightenment, not just for 1 day or 2 days, 1 year, then we see. No, until enlightenment. And this refers to the bodhicitta of aspiration. So I generate this aspiration, and to make it become reality, then now I need to work. And so through the practice of generosity, well, practice means the training, the process of transformation, of development of generosity, morality, patience, enthusiastic effort, concentration, wisdom.
Possa io raggiungere lo stato di Buddha
may I reach the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of every being, to help them get out of their cycle of suffering. This is the benefit that we mean. And so as we recite this verse, there are two important moments. The first moment is called the take of refuge of the result, the so-called result. And the difference is the following. The first refuge that we took is called the take refuge of the cause, causal, and this is the resultant take of refuge. So as we took refuge in the beginning, saying I take refuge in the Guru and the Buddha as those that guide me in the path. I take refuge in the Dharma, the path to be followed, and I take refuge in the Sangha, the spiritual company along the path. In this case, the refuge, the resultant refuge is I take refuge in the Buddha that I one day will become. I take refuge in my own potential of enlightenment. I take refuge in the pure state of mind, in the Dharma that one day I will develop, and in my daily practice of gradually being able to develop that state of love and compassion and wisdom. I take refuge in the Sangha, the spiritual company, the ideal spiritual company that one day I will become, and in my capacity since now to help the others. So it's not a refuge where I am asking something, but it's where I imagine myself in the future like that, and I say I want to become a Buddha. I have this potential, and I trust into the Buddha, but also in my own potential. In this moment, as we take refuge, there is a specific visualization that you can do or not. So as we say in the Buddha Dharma and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment. Okay, how can I do it to reach that? Through the practice of generosity and the other perfections, and I want to reach the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings. At this point we imagine that Guru Buddha that is in front of us comes towards us, an emanation of Guru Buddha. It's as if like from a candle that another candle is lit. Guru Buddha, an emanation comes towards us, like from one candle another is lit, and then it enters from our forehead, it absorbs there and sits. The central channel opens and it sits at our heart, and when Guru Buddha sits at our heart, our body and mind, very subtle, become inseparable from those of Guru Buddha. It's described as if our body and mind are like clay, and the body and mind of Guru Buddha that comes inside, it's like the artist who shapes the clay. And so we imagine that in that moment that Guru Buddha comes inside, that we become inseparable and of the same nature of Guru Buddha. And here we can meditate longer on allowing oneself to be Guru Buddha, to feel that infinite space, unconditional love, wisdom and harmony with every being and phenomenon. We allow ourselves to be Guru Buddha. This is called taking the result on the path. I am not the Buddha yet, but I imagine as if I were. So I take that result and I bring it on my path. So I take refuge in my own potential to become a Buddha. And this is also the moment where we reinforce the trust in ourselves. Because also in the process of the development of bodhicitta, there is one moment that is described, the bodhicitta that is similar to the peel of sugar. what happens is that the sugar cane husk has the same taste of the inside, but much less intense. There is like a... So the internal part is much sweeter than the outside part. And this refers to when you actually develop bodhicitta, but it's not completely developed. It's similar, but it's not the same. This is when we have love and compassion towards the others, but still trust in oneself lacks. There is a feeling of altruism towards the others, but that trust is still lacking, that trust that I can do it, that I can reach enlightenment for the benefit of all beings. And for this, in this moment when we visualize Guru Buddha that comes and becomes inseparable with us, we are developing that trust in ourselves. We are developing that certainty, I can do it. I will reach that state for the benefit of all beings, I can do it. And I imagine already the result, even if it's not there already. And at that point, we begin with the recitation of the so-called 4 incommensurables, and Amaganchen adds also the 3 aspirations or specific prayers, in which the 4 incommensurables are not 4 prayers that are called incommensurables. Actually, it's 4 feelings that are limitless that we should develop. And we familiarize ourselves with those. There are love, unconditional love, compassion, unconditional compassion, the joy, the rejoicing, unconditional, and unconditional equanimity. These are 4 qualities that are fundamental in our path: love, compassion, equanimity, and joy. So joy is intended rejoicing for the virtue and the joy of the others. And equanimity here is not the equanimity we are all the same, but equanimity that I don't have anymore a feeling of attraction or aversion towards one or the other.
L'equanimità precedente che abbiamo parlato era l'equanimità io e gli altri siamo uguali. Qui l'equanimità è io ho lo stesso sentimento verso uno piuttosto che l'altro, ho lo stesso amore e compassione verso tutti senza differenze. Non ho più attrazione a uno, più avversione all'altro. Quindi in questo momento, mentre recitiamo...
So in this moment, as we recite, may all beings have happiness and its causes, may all beings be free from suffering and its causes, and so on. These are the 4 incommensurables. And then on this, Lama Rinpoche added 3 prayers. So it's not that the incommensurables become 7. He also specified himself. So say the 4 incommensurables and the 3 specific prayers for the times in which we live. That it's a special dedication so that the beings can live in a healthy and pure environment, that they can be free from sicknesses of body and mind, and so that they can be in a state of inner and outer peace. And if we would look this from another point of view, all these 3 also go to reinforce the part of love and compassion, and joy and equanimity. They are like a reinforcement to the previous 4. So in this case, as we recite these 7 verses, what do we visualize? We visualize that from our heart that is inseparable from Guru Buddha, rays of light are emanated that go towards all the beings, and they go to each one of them, all those that we have visualized before, and these rays of light and nectar are transformed in what each one of them needs the most, helping them with the 4 forms of generosity. So giving them food to who's hungry, medicine to the sick, helping who has too much heat to protect them by the heat, or to who's cold to bring them heat, helping them on a physical material plane. And then the rays of light and nectar are transformed in emotional need, in a help to the emotional need, so giving them love, affection, what they need to reach a state of emotional stability. Then the rays of light are transformed in what they need to be safe, to feel safe, protecting them from fears of war, from fears of famine, of violence, fears of abandonment, and so on. Then the rays of light are transformed in the Dharma. Once the beings have like a minimum material that is well established, they are quite in a stable emotional state, they live in a safe context, they're not fearful of the future and of the past. And then at that point they're really ready to grow spiritually, and so the rays of light are transformed in the teachings that then guide them in the development of love towards themselves and towards the others, and the development of the correct view of reality, gradually bringing them to a state of peace. If we want to sum this up, then we can imagine that we send from our heart rays of light that touch their heart, that helps them to develop a state of peace. And so after having then done this, then the rays of light come back to our heart. This is the visualization that we should do, because what do we do? What are we doing here? We are reinforcing the feeling of love and compassion. Because the motivation is not enough to just say, may in the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha take refuge in enlightenment through the practice of generosity and other perfections. May you reach Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Beautiful, but that feeling must become something deep, something strong inside of us. So when we imagine this process with the rays of light, one of the very interesting things is that if we do well the visualization, then willingly or not, whether we are conscious or not, we are developing the four qualities. Because from the moment that I imagine that the rays of light go to each one in the same way, that is equanimity. The rays of light bring every being to a state of peace and joy, that is love. They help them to get them out of their suffering, that is compassion. Help them to protect them from their fear, that's protection. Then as the rays of light come back, I rejoice of their state of happiness. And so these are the four qualities. Equanimity, which is the same for everyone. Love, because through those rays of light it's their sufferings. And joy, because I rejoice of their state of well-being as the ray of light come back to my heart.
Qualità importanti per noi nel nostro sentiero, le andiamo gradualmente a sviluppare così. Per poter mantenere questo
in order to be able to maintain this feeling of bodhicitta, we need to protect it, we need to cultivate it. It's not something that you generate once and then that's it, as we have said before. Also because we are made of habits, and our habit is it towards selfishness or altruism? Predominantly towards selfishness, because we have grown up in a context that it's like that. We are been used to this for lifetimes, so this is our predisposition. We should walk against the current, we should create an opposite habit. And so for this we need to generate this feeling, and we should have every tool that we have, like so, from the analytical process and the visualization and the recitation. And here there are two fundamental aspects in order to be able to sustain it. There are recognizing and familiarizing with the suffering of the other beings. So generating empathy, sympathy, love, compassion and altruism towards the others. And to familiarize oneself with the benefits of bodhicitta, so the benefits of this mental state, because we still have a part of selfishness. So at one point it's important for us to understand that selfishly speaking, it's good for us to be altruistic. I would say we take a very short break and then we start again from this point, also to give a bit more mental freshness.
Kuncho sumke chinge loba, kuncho sumke ngodrubutsol, kuncho sumke trashisho. Facciamo 10 minuti e torniamo, ok? Vajra Sattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajra Sattva Tenopa Trishta Didro Me Bhawa Sutto Kayo Me Bhawa Supo Kayo Me Bhawa Anurakto Me Bhava Sarva Siddhi Me Prayatsam Sarva Karma Sutsa Me Cittama Shreyama Kuruhum Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Mame Munsa Vajra Bhava Maha Samaya Sattva Ahumpe Sashi Pöge Chushe Medo Tran Rirablin She Nide Gembadi Sangye Shindu Mikte Ulwargi Drugu Namda Shingla Chöpar Sho Yidam Guru Ratna Mindral Kam Niryata Yami. Nel testo di Atisha,
in the text from Atisha, that is called the lamp that clarifies, that illuminates the path, there is the text where Atisha wrote like a manual for enlightenment, that is the basis of what today is called the LamRim. And there is a moment in this text where Atisha talks about the benefits of bodhicitta and says, look, there is a particular sutra of Buddha where it talks about the benefits of bodhicitta, and I sum it up in 3 verses. In the first verse, Atisha says, if we could give form to the positive karmic force generated through the bodhicitta, that is when really there is that altruistic, unconditional feeling. Let's remember that what conditions our feeling of love and compassion is our own selfishness, because we are not able to love unconditionally because we are blocked by the I and the mind. Now, without getting into details, a feeling of unconditional altruism with the intention to develop oneself to then help all the beings, the bodhicitta. If we had to take the positive karmic force generated through this state and manifest it, represent it with a physical form, because it's not that the positive karmic force and negative is not that it has one physical form, but if we were able to represent it, it will feel the whole extension of space, and anyway it will not fit. To say that it's incommensurable, it's something that is extremely vast. And then it goes on by saying this one summary of a Sutra of Buddha, a sutra where Buddha Maitreya, in that case Bodhisattva Maitreya, talks with Buddha Shakyamuni and asks some questions on bodhicitta, and Buddha replies. And subsequently there is when he says, if we had to take and make some wonderful offerings of jewels and things that are very beautiful to many lands of Buddha, the sacred lands, the lands of Buddhas are where they live in the infinity of existence. To how many Buddhas there are as grain of sands in the Ganges river. The merits that we will generate will not be comparable to not even one moment of bodhicitta, because the merits that are generated in one moment of bodhicitta are incommensurable, they are unlimited. It is said that the positive karmic force that it's generated through a feeling of love is strong. What determines the strength of what is generated is towards who and for how long also, and what is the intensity of the feeling that we have. So the more that feeling is conditioned by our own selfishness and so on, the more it becomes limited, the quantity of energy that we generate. I don't know if this is clear. So when I have a feeling that it's towards everyone and it's unconditional, how many beings exist? Like innumerable, we cannot count them, we cannot say like this is the number of beings that it's there. And when that feeling is of love and it goes towards everyone in an unconditional way, the quantity of positive karmic force that is generated is also innumerable, because it's directed towards innumerable beings. And it's not something that is generated towards just like 1 day or 2 days, 1 month or 2 years or 10 years. It's until enlightenment. And so also towards a time that is infinite. And so these two factors, together with the factor of being feeling of love, pure, of one's own selfishness, makes it so that the positive karmic force is limitless. And this is also very important. I try to be brief. There is one simple rule. There are no results for which the causes hadn't been created. Whatever we experience, it's because at a certain point we have created the causes to experience what we are experiencing. Nothing comes from nothing and nothing ends up in nothing. So if I want to experience a state of joy that is unlimited, a state of happiness unlimited, and so on, I need to have the positive karmic force to sustain that inner state. To be a little bit more detailed, what happens is that our feelings of pleasure or suffering are the way through which we experience the result of the actions of the past. Further in these teachings, when we will get into details of the law of karma, we will take this again. But if one asks himself or herself, how do I experience the result of the actions? Through the feeling. So each and every pleasurable feeling is when we experience the result of so-called virtuous action, and every feeling of suffering that we have is when we experience the result of non-virtuous actions. It's a bit like saying, if I want to buy some things that I like, then I need to first accumulate some money. It's not that I go to someone and say, oh no, I want that thing. But do you have the money? No. And so you can't get it, but you still have the wish. You need to accumulate the money to get that thing. Similarly, to have an inner state of peace and so on, a feeling of that, then you need to accumulate the causes, the basis that can sustain that state. And along our spiritual path is not only a path of development of patience, generosity, morality, concentration, wisdom. All of this is part of it and is fundamental, but together with the process of familiarization is necessary a basis. Let's use the term energetical, because we don't have the word in our own language actually. What in Tibetan is called sonam. In Sanskrit is sonam, in Tibetan is punya, which is translated as merit, but it's not a good translation. So this positive karmic force sustains this spiritual inner path. If this force lacks, then it all stays on an intellectual level and doesn't go in a deeper level. So, also from a very selfish point of view, thinking about ourselves, to love the others, it's the best opportunity that we have to generate this positive karmic force. This is one of the benefits that it's there. And so, by all means, then later on we will get into the details of this. Selfishly speaking, it's much better to be altruistic. Because thinking about my own well-being or my own welfare, the state of love and compassion helps me to be well, and the state of selfishness harms me. But it's something that we have to repeat and so on in order to sustain the state of bodhicitta, the mind of bodhicitta that we generate. The two causes that help this are getting in touch with the beings and generating equanimity, generating compassion for the beings, seeing their suffering, seeing their similarities with us to generate empathy. We need to repeat this. But there is something for which we need to be very careful that unfortunately happens. And this happens not only in the spiritual practice, but also in the daily life and in this historical time. There is also a particular danger, that is the one of seeing the suffering of the other and generating a sort of protection where one becomes indifferent towards the suffering of the other. Because at the beginning, when we see someone that is suffering, naturally, what is the feeling that we have? We have the feeling of wanting the other not to suffer. If at a certain point there is someone that we see that he's harming himself or herself, what is the feeling that we have spontaneously? Indifference or somehow wanting to help? At the basis there is that. But what happens when we start to see a lot of suffering? Then we go from the wanting to help to a strong feeling of impotence, because we suffer because we want to do something but I don't know how to help. So as a sort of protection, I end up developing a sort of indifference towards the others. So I see suffering and I become like indifferent, I don't mind anymore. And today, we see almost real-time images of states of suffering that are we are so overwhelmed by all these images that at a certain point, I hope not for everyone, it's not that he wants the other to suffer, but that image doesn't have any effect anymore somehow. Pabonka Rinpoche described it in the following way. Imagine a container, he said, of leather. The leather container wherein in Tibet would put the butter. So the butter will be contained in this. And at the beginning, when it's the first time that you put the butter in there, then the leather absorbs the fat until it becomes impermeable. And after that, then you can remove, you put again butter, it doesn't absorb anymore the fat. This is the example that he gives when we repeat something too often, we don't do it in the right way, then we become insensitive, indifferent to that. And actually, the mode that we should have, the Pabonka describes it as similar to when there is an object of sadness, something that generates sadness, a situation that has happened that touches us personally. The more we talk about that situation, the more the sadness increases. And there isn't anything new in this, we already know this. The more we talk about the object of anger, the more the anger increases. And similarly, the more we see the suffering of the others, then also the compassion should increase. But what happens is that when we start to feel compassion and we don't know what to do, and somehow it turns against us because we start to suffer with a feeling of impotence, then we generate a feeling where we block that compassion. And then, bit by bit, we become indifferent. I don't know if this is clear. And this can happen also in the process of visualizing the beings. At the beginning, I visualize them and that they are suffering, and I feel this, and after a while it becomes like a normal thing and just repeat it, and it doesn't affect me anymore. There is a danger where I want, actually I go direct to the point. It's a bit strong as a way of saying there is a danger that at a certain point we want to be that who loves everyone, that person who loves everyone, but we care little about the others actually. Because I develop an idealized image of who I should be, me because I'm a Buddhist, I should have the image of who is kind, lovable, and I should be the Bodhisattva. But what I want is to nourish my ego with that image. So what matters to me is not really about the suffering of the other and the happiness of the other. What I care about is to be that person who is the savior of the country. There are times where we want to help the other, not really because we care about the other, but because we want to be that who helps. And unfortunately, it's easy to fall in this trap. Our selfishness is so deep sometimes that even when we start with something sincere as love and compassion, it finds a way to trick us. And it's here that in the teachings of the mind training of Lojong, there are two moments when it's said, one, be careful to not allow the gods to become demons, and don't eat poisoned food. To not make the gods turn into demons means to not turn something that is pure, virtuous, to become negative. So the practice that I do of development of love and compassion, that is something wonderful. And as the intention of really developing love and compassion becomes something that actually, instead of developing that, becomes something to nourish my ego. Are you able to see this danger? It's not a joke, it's something to which we really have to be careful. And the other case is when the food that is supposed to, there is like the food that is supposed to nourish me, like the spiritual practice that I do to decrease my ego and increase the altruism, actually becomes a way to nourish my selfishness. Look, I'm the Bodhisattva. Look, how arrogant are those, I am better than them. And among all the types of arrogance, the spiritual arrogance is the worst that exists. And here a sentence comes into my mind that said from Benigni, when he was explaining the Divine Comedy. He said that the humility is the most difficult quality, because you just need to think about being humble for not being it anymore. And here we have to be careful that this feeling of love and compassion is really sincere, and we gradually need to nourish this. As a basis, at least we should try to generate the feeling and the clarity that is, I want to feel love and compassion and recognize the importance of being altruistic. Can I do it right away? No. But we also have to be careful in this process of not falling into another trick of the ego, which is the sense of guilt. So I want to be lovable with everyone, but I'm not. Look how bad I am. We shouldn't fall into this also. And so, in a sincere way, in the same way, like when we talked about observing the suffering, we didn't talk about observing the suffering in general, but our causes of the suffering, where I project the happiness and the suffering and so on. And so when we talk about generating equanimity, it's not something generic, generic, but it's something that it's strongly connected with us. And it's for this that we start from the 5 objects: family, friends, people whom we live with, and those towards which we have a justified aversion and towards we have an unjustified aversion. That's where we have to work. That's where we have to put our effort and really develop love and compassion. That's the most important point. And if we are able to do this, we make our life meaningful. Also because the more we are able to direct ourselves towards bodhicitta daily, slowly. Let's remember, when we want something, mind finds its ways to realize it. Because in our daily life, there is everything going on, like good things, bad things, pleasurable moments, unpleasurable moments. But depending on the input that you give, it changes the way of living it and seeing it. For example, last July, when during my birthday this ceremony of long life was done, there were some small moments that happened that I interpreted in a particular way. Usually I don't go and mystify things. That time I saw some small things because during the ceremony there were very moments where there was a sort of, how can I say, a pattern. Something that was repeating, and there were small things that were starting in a bad way, they weren't working, and then they were solving out, like trivial things, maybe just the puja of incense, they forget about the incense, and then eventually everything was ready and it all worked. Then it comes the moment of making the mandala offering, the thing that it's the top with the wheel of dharma falls, and then it's put again, and it's like crooked, and then it's placed again, and then it's fixed. And the message that I got, it was that, okay, this year there will be some small interferences, things that will manifest like interferences, but eventually everything will go well. Like, for example, when we left for the journey, for our pilgrimage, it was all like that. For example, one very trivial example, I was having breakfast at 10 and doing the check-in, and I see that my flight was late, that I was going to lose the connection, and so I would have got there 24 hours later, and I wouldn't have been able to participate in the meeting to which I was going. So at 10 in the morning, I bought another ticket for the plane that left at 1 in the afternoon, and so I was able to take the flight, to have the reimburse of the previous flight, and everything was perfect. What I want to say is that in the moment that there was that awareness that I shared with the people that I was traveling with, we had all these small things that seemed to go wrong, but actually everything was going fine. But since there was that mental attitude, in the moment of the interference of the difficulty, the mind was already direction that everything would go okay. And actually it went like that. If one gets into the dynamic that when there is something wrong, now everything will go wrong, look how this is, and starts to get into that dynamic, the mind creates that narrative and lives in that way and finds the way to justify that. So in our life, many things could happen, many things bad, but when we, from the beginning, we give a sane direction, when and at the end, like, there is something that we learn, something that solves out, and we see the interferences as something to be eliminated, not to follow them. But our problem is actually that we follow these interferences, giving them space, importance. Actually, we just face the difficulty and then we go on. And similarly to this, when we give an input at the beginning of love towards oneself, towards ourselves and the others, that naturally conditions the rest that we do. So when we talk about generating the motivation, it's not like a sort of act, like a ceremonial act. It's not something, how can we say, like a ritual. You need to take refuge every day. The rituals that are there are nothing else but a tool that is there to maintain something really precious. And because we really need to renew our motivation, to create that habit and that familiarity, and to give a direction to our mind and consequently to our life, we need to repeat that thing, and from this comes the ritual. From this, like if you take the text of the Guru Puja and the preliminary practices, if you read the Guru Puja, let's see if I have it here. Can someone give me Guru Puja? We will see that actually it's not that the Lam Rim was made on like a commentary of the text of the Guru Puja. Actually, it's the other way around. The Guru Puja, the preliminary practices, and so on, are a tool to help us to do that process of transformation, inner transformation. Now I will read the part of the Guru Puja where you will exactly see what we have seen what we're seeing now.
La Guru Puja c'è un particolare che adesso non entro nei dettagli, ma per i principianti si dovrebbe partire dal verso 2.
Actually, the Guru Puja has a particularity where we should recite the verse 2.
Quindi comincio a leggere dal verso 2. Da uno stato di mente eccelsa, bianca, virtuosa,
From a state of an excellent mind, white and virtuous, me and all the mother sentient beings as vast as the space, from now till enlightenment, we will take refuge in the Guru and the three jewels. From an excellent state of mind means from a state of mind that is neutral. White means that it's clear from the mental defilements. That means after having sat down, after having done the breathing, and after having removed point, we generate a positive motivation. Also because it's not possible to generate a positive inner state as a continuity of a negative state. So if I sit to meditate and I have all kind of negative emotions, first of all, I need to stop that flow to then start another one. And so with the breathing, what we do is to stop that flow, or at least stop its strength. The example that was made before of the cushion in the room, we do that for the mind. This is the state of the excellent mind. White means free from negative emotions. And at this point I generate a virtuous mind and I take refuge. There are more detailed texts where here comes the meditation on the four limitlessness meditation. And then there is the part of the bodhicitta for the benefit of all beings, my mothers. It means that I develop a feeling of love, affection towards all beings as the one that I have towards my mother. Now we don't open this argument. And it's interesting because until a few generations ago, this was something taken for granted. Now the relationship with the mother and the father is not given for granted, that there is deep gratitude and so on. When in reality it's taken from centuries as a point of reference. Okay, if you have gratitude towards someone, then it's your mother. But then someone may say, but you don't know mine. And what happens is that happens because we have an idealized concept of mother. But if someone comes today and would save our lives, our life, we have a sense of gratitude. If at a certain point we are not able to eat anymore by ourselves, to survive by ourselves, and takes care of us day and night, will we have gratitude towards that person? And does gratitude have an expiration date? Like I've already had gratitude like for already 2 years. Has ever occurred to you that someone saved your life when you were born? Would you have been able to survive by yourself? What does it happen if you take a newborn and you just leave it on his own? Does he survive or not? So there was someone that was there that took care of us, that gave us food, that protected us, that cleaned us, that gave us affection, and so on. And why wouldn't we be grateful, at least, of that? Then there is this deep philosophical concept that one thing is one thing and another thing is another thing. It doesn't mean that unless, okay, one has been born from two parents that are Buddha, every parent has like his own personal story, has his own negative things. Sometimes one mother came to me and said, I will never want to do something that would hurt my children. And I said, look, you have no choice, because in our interactions we have no control on our mental defilements. Then we have an idealized image of how the other should be that doesn't match then, and so on. And other than all of this, we have received a lot. And to be able to feel gratitude is one of the starting points to then develop love and compassion. And I'm sorry to say it, but if we are not able to feel gratitude towards who has taken care of us since when we were in a state that we weren't able to survive on our own, like we were with no defense, and that person took care of us with love and affection, and we are not able to feel gratitude there, then we should leave all the rest aside. And I'm not saying that in order to advance on the spiritual path you should have a perfect relationship with your father and mother. I'm not saying that, otherwise for the great majority for us we should go to the psychologist and we take care of that, and maybe at the end of our lives we will be able to practice the Dharma. What I'm saying is that in order to feel a sincere love and compassion towards the others, this starts from gratitude, and gratitude starts from the one towards our parents, those that have cared for us, taught us, guided us. The feeling of gratitude is one of the starting points that are fundamental for the development of love and altruism. So for this, when here we say for the benefit of all mother sentient beings, it means that I have a feeling of gratitude towards the beings as my mother. For the sake of all mother sentient beings, I transform myself into... No. I shall quickly, in this very life, attain the state of a primordial Buddha Guru Yidam. I shall liberate all mother sentient beings from suffering and lead them to the great bliss of Buddhahood. To this end, I now shall practice the profound path of Guru Yidam. What is said here is that I want to help the beings, and for this I must become a Buddha, what we have said before. But it's important for us to remember that what we do when we sit and breathe and generate refuge and the bodhicitta is that we give a direction to our mind, and this has a tremendous power. When we say, but I can't maintain a virtuous state in my mind, bodhicitta is too difficult to develop it. Can you imagine that I would become so altruistic? I leave this to the great masters. I take refuge in the Buddhas and the masters. Oh, great bodhisattvas, leave me my own ignorance because I will never make it. Because there is like one place where one says, okay, I can't do it. If one asks with a lot of sincerity, do you actually believe that you can become a very altruistic being? Maybe with a lot of time. Now I really see it like very difficult. It's a matter of habit. And when we are able gradually, day after day, to revisit our direction, to give the good direction with love towards ourselves and towards the others, and we repeat this daily, naturally mind will find ways to maintain that narrative and find the way to sustain that path, until one day we will be surprised of ourselves. Oh wow, look at this feeling that I have. This, I will never expected to feel this. So it's possible. And sometimes I hear someone saying, I thought I had done something and then look how selfish I was, and so it was all pointless what I did. No. The path of familiarization is a path where gradually we are able to decrease the strength of a habit and gradually to create another habit. Sometimes one is more selfish, sometimes more altruistic, and then bit by bit the goal is to decrease the intensity and the duration of the periods of selfishness and to increase the duration and the intensity of the moments of altruism, so that gradually we create a stability. But in a context we will be able to be more altruistic, in another to be less, because we don't have completed this yet. But the more we generate the motivation, the more then we give ourselves this direction. And so the first thing we should do when we meditate, there is also a text that we will go and read this winter. There is a text from Lama Je Tsong Khapa, and it's a text where at the end of his life he wrote this text where he asked these questions, okay, and he was like, okay, if you can answer this, then it means that you're really good on your path, otherwise go back to study. And the only one that replied formally to these questions was Panchen Losang Chökyi Gyatso. And one of these questions is, what is the first step of meditation? What is the first thing to do? And the reply was, the first thing that one should do is to generate the motivation. That is the first step that is necessary. The meditation on the breathing before is the basis to generate the motivation, but the first thing that needs to be done is the motivation. For example, if one is a doctor, every time that he goes to work, may it happen that when he began that profession, there was like a particular motivation, like a moment of a particular inspiration of wanting to help the others and so on. Then it becomes a habit. Then at a certain point one just does it and doesn't think about it. So for example, if every time that one gets into his studio, remembers why he's there, or when one is going to work at the beginning of the day, generates the motivation, may I be of benefit for every being, a person that I meet, may I help them in their process of healing. And like this, we can apply this on many things. If we are cooking, we dedicate, and we dedicate like, okay, may I nourish those who receive this food, and may those who receive this food generate a state of strength, that, and may through this be able to continue their virtuous path. There are many ways in which we can think to continually maintain and sustain our motivation, and here I leave to the creativity of each one. We should see in our daily life how can we make it so that we can adapt to our daily life this path. But if we don't regenerate again and again and again and again the motivation, then it will become very difficult to sustain it. There will be some moments of inspiration where we connect and then we lose it. And so, in order to not lose it, we need to generate the motivation again. And so, with this, we get to the point of the preparation of the body and mind. In the preliminary practices, we have seen how to prepare the body to sit correctly, the breathing, how to prepare the mind by generating a motivation of love towards oneself and love towards the others. And from this moment, the subsequent part of the preliminaries is based on three main factors, aspects, that are accumulating positive karmic force, purifying the negative one, and receiving the blessings. These are the three actions that need to be done, sustaining what is done after that. Then, okay, I want to meditate on the preciousness of this life, or like in the point where we got to in the Lam Rim, in trusting correctly a spiritual guide. In order to sustain that practice, one does the part of accumulation, of generating positive karmic force, decreasing the negative karmic force, and receiving the blessings. Yesterday I said that today I would have explained what are the blessings, so I will say that we conclude with this to then understand the importance, and then we will next time start again from the moment of the practice. Okay, now this point there is the part where we dissolve Guru Buddha inside of us and generate the motivation for the practice. We conclude the part of the motivation to then start with the part of the accumulation of merit and purification and receiving the blessings. So actually we conclude this part of explanation and visualization, and then we start with the other one. So we have Guru Buddha in front of us, we have received the blessings with the refuge, we have done the part of the bodhicitta, an emanation has come towards us, we have become inseparable, rays of light and nectar have gone towards all beings and have come back and have been reabsorbed at the heart. And at this point, having generated a solid basis of love towards ourselves that has been transformed in altruism, love and compassion towards the others, bodhicitta, with the intention I must develop myself to help the others. With the basis of this, we say, just because I want by all means reach a state of enlightenment for the benefit of all beings, I will now do the practice of self-healing, I will now do the practice of Guru Yoga, I will meditate on impermanence, whatever will be the practice that I will do. So I will generate the motivation that on the basis of that love and altruism, I direction the specific action that I will do. That is what in the Guru Puja is in the verse number 6. That is, I shall liberate all mother beings, sentient beings from suffering and lead them to the great bliss of Buddhahood. To this end, I now shall practice the profound path of Guru Yodam. So to help all the beings to get out of the beings, I shall develop my qualities. And in order to do this, I will now do this meditation or practice and so on. And at this point, the visualization that for me is one of the most beautiful ones, that is not often described in an explicit way. We visualize with this intention that Guru Buddha that is in front of us dissolves in a beautiful golden light. This light comes towards us, enters through our forehead, where there is the central channel, and from the forehead it fills the central channel. And this golden light fills the central channel and it expands from there, filling our whole body, and from our own body it expands, filling the whole universe. So everything dissolves in light. Everything that light touches becomes light. It's as if our body is not there anymore. It's like overwhelmed by light, and as light expands toward each and every being that surrounds us, every aspect of the universe, everything is something else but an infinite luminous emptiness. And here we can go deeper and meditate that it's empty of intrinsic existence, inseparable from bliss, and I am this union of bliss and emptiness. Subsequently, then we'll explain this more in detail, but in a few words, we imagine that everything dissolves in light and we find ourselves in a deep state of peace. And we should remember that everything that everything dissolves into light, it also represents that everything is of the same nature as being interdependent and so empty of intrinsic existence. And so here is the point where we have generated love towards ourselves, love towards the others, and what is the third aspect of the path? The correct view of reality. And here is where we meditate on the correct view of reality. And so everything is empty of intrinsic existence, nothing exists in an autonomous, independent, objective way, and everything is of the same nature. And so everything dissolves in light. And from this infinite emptiness, empty of intrinsic existence, inseparable from deep bliss, and I am this union of bliss and emptiness, from this state, the universe arises again, and then at this point I visualize the offerings, I visualize the merit field according to the practice that I will do, and I start everything that I will do after. But the motivation, the part of generating the motivation ends when Guru Buddha absorbs, generating the specific intention of the practice. So then, after that, I start with the actual practice that I have to do. Next time we will see what I have to visualize, that is called the generation of the merit field and so on. But this part is what comes after the verse 6, when Guru Buddha that is visualized in front of us dissolves into us and we become inseparable on the same nature, and that light expands, includes every being, and then from that emptiness we arise again in the specific characteristics of the meditational practice that we will do. Why to request the blessings? We are not autonomous, independent beings, we are relational beings, interdependent. What does this mean? That interactions transform us. This means that if I am in a certain context, then I am influenced by the context in which I find myself. To understand a blessing, one of the ways is to put it the other way around. When we are in the presence of someone that is really angry, other than the fact, aside from the fact that he's angry or not, or with us or not, but this person maybe is just angry in general. Does it influence us or not? Do we feel something or not? Are we more serene? No. Bit by bit, it's as if, by using a term that it's also not like the most exact one, it's as if that influences us to vibrate with the same frequency. We also become more tense, more nervous. We will have a more we will have more easily a nervous reaction also. And the same happens when we are in the presence of someone who is calm, joyous, balanced, satisfied, wise, and so on. And one of the definitions of blessing is an interaction that becomes a condition for a positive and virtue transformation of the being. So blessings can come from places, images, memories, words, sounds, people, beings of any kind, from objects. There's also a term that says a being can bless another being. A being can bless another being. A being can bless a place, and a place can bless a being. What does this mean? That in the interaction with the material things, also an energy is transmitted to those objects, places, and they retain that energy that then also transmit it to others. There are some places that influence our state of mind. Recently, also being in these mountains of Mongolia, Altai, for me, it has been very clear this. It was a place where I would feel a very particular joy, I would feel physical energy as much more than usual. And in the moment of going away, I didn't want to go away, or I had like an emotion of like having to leave. And after having gone just to the other side of the mountain, it's as if like a sort of tiredness was coming, as if what was sustaining me wasn't there anymore. There are places where you go and then you feel like some tiredness already. There are some people with which you are, and then in their presence you feel like something or something else. I remember, for example, with Richard Rinpoche, when he came here, one of the things that I've heard from many, it's okay, me usually I didn't know to have that level of concentration. That comes from the presence also. So it's not that the blessings that you can receive them only from special beings. Actually, we in every moment receive and give blessings. If we use the sense blessing in a broader sense, also anger is a blessing somehow, in the negative sense. In other words, constantly we influence each other. We constantly influence and are influenced because we interact. And so to request the blessings means to request, to open to an interaction that can be good for us. Also because when between two people there is a connection heart to heart, mind to mind, the influence that one has on the other is much greater. If we are close to someone towards which we are open, then we are much more easily influenced by that person, rather than if we were indifferent. And so for this, the moment of requesting the blessings and the previous part of visualizing the wisdom being and to connect to the wisdom being, it's when we create a connection with a being of love and wisdom, being that is spiritually evolved, so that the interaction with someone with those qualities helps us to develop ourselves those qualities. So when we request the blessings, it means that we request, by requesting the blessings, we open to interact with a being that has those qualities, so that it can help us to develop them ourselves. I've had many experiences when I'm in the presence of someone with which I have a connection, and that person has some qualities, and to be in the presence of that person, naturally we feel more clarity, more joy. To me, it comes to my mind also when I was studying in Tibet, the monastery of Tachilumpo, it seemed magical somehow. And if we wanted to use this term, also we can use it. but it's like when I was stepping inside the walls of the monastery. Unfortunately, I had to sleep outside, like 50 meters in front. And when I was stepping inside the walls, naturally, I felt like practicing, meditating, studying the Dharma. It was strange. And then as I was stepping out, then it would decrease. I would step in, that would increase. I was doing my things anyway, but when I was outside, it's as if I had to do an effort like 5-10 times greater than when I was there. And when I was inside instead, I was more spontaneous. These are the blessings of a place. And it's for this that it's important to do a pilgrimage, to go to sacred being. It's important to be in the presence of realized beings, but in order to receive the blessings, we need to allow ourselves to sing, to tune in to that channel, to be able to listen to that music. Otherwise, if we don't tune in, then we're not able to perceive. Actually, it comes, but we're not able to really feel it. So what we will do in the next phase of the preliminary practices is to be able to request the blessings as a basis to then realize the path that we want to develop, the process of the trust towards the spiritual guide, the awareness of the preciousness of this human life, of impermanence, of the love towards ourselves, love towards the others, everything that comes after that. It is said, repeated in all ways, that without the process of accumulation of positive energy and opposition to negative karmic forces, and mostly of the request of the blessings and and receiving the blessings, the path only remains on a conceptual, intellectual level. So it's fundamental to have this process. Also, Lama Tsong Khapa himself, certain point when he had all the knowledge, and when we go read the books of Lama Tsong Khapa, the level of knowledge that he had was tremendous. The texts that came to India, he knew exactly the various versions of the translation from Sanskrit, and in general people wouldn't even read those texts. He had like a tremendous level of the teachings, of knowledge of the teachings of Buddha. At a certain point he spent 1.5 years simply doing practices of accumulation of merit, purification, and requesting of blessings. And we think maybe to do 100,000 take of refuge is a lot. Lama Tsong Khapa did like 1.5 million prostration, something like that. He made an infinite mandala offerings. Even the place where he was there to do it, where he would pass the hand every time, it was like a piece of rock that remained marked by all the times that he did the mandala offerings. And the more these people have like a deeper practice and evolved spiritually, then the more they do this kind of practices to accumulate spiritual energy and request the blessings and so on. We who are at the beginning, we do less. It's interesting this, eh? Actually, it's because one understands the importance. And so I invite you now mainly to put emphasis on generating the motivation, and so to focus on bringing stability through the breathing, and connecting with our deeper goals, asking with clarity what do I want to be, opening to the others, generating love towards oneself and towards the others. And so the take of refuge, the generation of bodhicitta, and to put emphasis on that. Because, as I said the previous time, the fact of being able to follow these teachings without being in a hurry to finish right away, then that allows us, to me and also to you, because we do it together. It's not because I am also doing it with you. It allows us to familiarize more with what we have seen before the next passage, which is also what Pabonka Rinpoche did, who transmitted the teachings of in the liberation of in the palm of her hand. Actually, this book was written by Kapchari Trijang Rinpoche, which was a transcription of the teachings that is received from Pabonka Rinpoche. That then, as Pabonka Rinpoche was teaching, Trijang Rinpoche and other two disciples, they would write just with the eyes fixed on Pabonka every word that he was saying. And then after that, Trijang Rinpoche took all those notes, he put them together, edited them, and wrote then this book at the name of his guru, because the teachings are from Pabonka Rinpoche. So this book actually was edited and put together by Trijang Rinpoche, but then was transmitted by Pabonka Dechen Nimpo. When Pabonka Rinpoche himself received these teachings, I don't want to compare with what we are doing, but there was a similar characteristic. It's not that everything was done right away in one shot. He was talking about one thing. Okay, no, he received like the take refuge, then he would go to meditate, for example. It was like living in a hut close by his master, and then he would go there to meditate, and when he felt that he had a deeper comprehension and an insight on that, then okay, I can really take refuge well. I am gone from understanding to comprehending to feeling. Then he will go to his master. I've understood this and that. Okay, well, now we go to the next step. And it took more or less 1 year or something to go through the whole LamRim. So I invite you to take advantage of the fact that we are not doing one weekend after the other, and that it's not everything one thing after the other, to take what we have seen and to put it into practice, to repeat it. There is no rush to do all the preliminaries. Let's do what we have done until now. So sit down calmly, accumulate the take of refuge, allow yourselves to feel and to meditate with calmness and the Four Noble Truths, and then in the generation of bodhicitta, and to concentrate of generating the motivation. It's a bit like saying, okay, what you do during the rest of the day in this phase doesn't matter much. Concentrate on developing the right motivation in the morning. And that's already a lot. Because let's remember, the steps need to be done one after the other. When I'm able to generate the motivation well in the morning and to create also the habit of generating that motivation in the beginning, then that will continue and I will add things after that. But first I need to create the habit of generating the basis. So let's remember to generate the motivation, to remember what we want, why we do it, and so on. And here you can take the text of the Guru Puja, you can take the text of the preliminary practices that are there, for example, in the self-healing. You do the take of refuge, generation of bodhicitta, and you can also stop there. You don't need to do much after that. I think that it's actually better to recite less and then meditate more. But please take your time. Take use of this opportunity that we have today, because actually it's quite special, the fact that we are able to take the time to dedicate to sharing with calmness and clarity the aspects of the path. What we are seeing is a manual that is precise towards enlightenment. But we shouldn't become experts in the manual. That would also be nice, but that's not the point. The point is to use the manual and then slowly to walk in that direction. So in this phase now we focus on generating bodhicitta, the motivation. Now we make our dedications. In the prayer of the Lam Rim, that is at the beginning, if we put that again, there is the final dedication. We make the mandala offering to thank for this opportunity.
Je Tsong Lame Kutse Rapten Chin Nam Karatrinle Losan Tempe Drume Sasumgi Drove Munsela Taktu Ne Gyur Chi Yidam Guru Ratna Mendra
Tenerinto, giusto? Torna indietro. Queste preghiere, sia quella dell'inizio che questa, sono le stesse recitazioni che vengono...
These prayers are the same recitations that have been done since when Lama Tsong Khapa gave these teachings that are used from generation to generation. Now we do them in Tibetan because we receive them in this way. Then slowly we will recite them in Italian. Bit by bit, we will shift, we will kind of take this tradition to our reality, but first it's important to start from the source to receive from that where we are now.
Rindo bele tsonyi ni kadra yangpa kanshi sakpa te Lomi mari gidon drowa na namdren gyawe wangbur dhagir chi terma songwe tsera kundu yang jambe yange tsewe jesong ne tembe rimba kunza lamgi cho nyene drube gyalnam nyeche sho rangi chishin tokpe lamgi ne Shukra tsewe drambe tapkegi drowe yigi mumba silchene gyawe temba yurin zingyur chi temba rinchen chogi makyapam kyapkyan nyambara gyurbe chokterani nyingje chembo yira kyopayi Pende terte selwara chebra sho seche gyawe mechon trinlele lektro chancho lamge rimbe kyang tarde namge yila peltereshi zepa rinto kyongyur chi lamsan drube tungen drubche ching Galken selche mida mimin kun tsera kundo gyawe ngakpa namda lamdan chalwar mar gyur chi kanse tekpa chola chu 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 sulshin drubla tsumpa teyitse tukde namge taktu trokche ching Trashi gyatso chokun kyab kyur chi kewa kuntu yanda lama dang drame cheki pela longche ching yente rabzone dorje changi kopa nyur toba sho nimodele tsendele nime kuyan delek shing Kuncho sumki chingi lop, kuncho sumki ngodrubo tsol, kuncho sumki trashisho. All'alba o al tramonto,
di notte o durante il giorno, possano i tre gioielli concederci le loro benedizioni, possano aiutarci ad ottenere tutte le realizzazioni e cospargere il sentiero della nostra vita con molti segni di buon auspicio. Grazie a tutti, buon appetito.